Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Shooting the Shit Uncensored. I am your host, the dad bod god, the bald, the beard, the fucking beautiful Piers Austin. And once again, I'm joined by the original greaser, Robbie, the man with the three largest legs in professional wrestling, Zucco.
Hey, bro, how are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. 2 weeks in a row doing a podcast with you, bro. I'm really enjoying this, man. I have a lot of fun having you on these shows. Last week with Tyson was amazing. This week we've got Ryan Eagles, which is going to be just as amazing. So I'm really looking forward to that. Thank you again for joining on this episode.
No, thank you. I really appreciate it. I actually have a great time talking to you, and also talking wrestling with a lot of the boys here. And I'm looking forward to this next guest. You got to remember this guy. He was actually the founder of PWA in Sydney, and we go way back. I guess you can say we have a lot in common, if you know what I mean. But without further ado, I'll take it over to you.
That's it. Well, before we get into that, we need to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, which is Sleefs.com. That's SLEEFS, Sleefs.com. If you or someone you know is an athlete, you need to go and check out Sleefs. They've got everything covered: athletic wear, athletic gear. They've got armbands, compression pants, compression shorts, compression socks, headbands, boots, mouth guards, and they've got those dirty boxes that you always hear me talking about, guys. Like, seriously, I'm an active dude. I'm, working full time. I go to the gym. I got 3 crazy kids. I got a crazy wife. Just kidding, darling. I'm podcasting. I'm doing all sorts of shit. These boxes stay dry. They stay fresh, and they seriously are so freaking comfortable, Rob. You have no idea. And they've got funky designs on the front of them as well to keep that special person laughing. At the end of the day, when the belt buckle comes undone, they're laughing at what's on the front of the boxes and not what's inside them. Yeah, I know. Bad dick joke. But go and check out Sleeves.com. Use promo code MWAPOD to get a 10% discount on your final purchase. Now, if wherever you are tuning in, wherever you are finding us, I appreciate it. I really do. If you're tuning in on YouTube, please make sure you like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good shit. If you're listening on a podcast platform, please give us a 5-star review. It helps with our analytics. I appreciate it. It helps us reach more amazing people, bringing more amazing conversations like this one. So go and do that shit, please. But I've talked enough shit so far, Rob. So now it's time to bring in the one and only Ryan motherfucking Eagles. Yeah. What's going on? Hello. Hey, what's going on, fellas?
Am I lagging?
Not at all. What's going on, guys?
Just, I can't say anything to that intro. Just, you floored me here, guys.
In a good way or a bad way?
I laughed intently.
Oh, well, good. Then we did our job right. We did our job right.
But, man, you been good?
Yeah, mate. Been really good. Just busy with work and family and all the boring stuff. But what about yourself?
I am doing exactly the same. Just
oh, hey, DJ.
Exciting.
Yeah, that's it. We definitely have a couple of legends on display again this night. So there's plenty of stuff we're going to get into in this conversation. But man, like you last time I saw you, Ryan, you made a debut on FWA. How did you find turning up and rocking up at an FWA show?
Look, nothing says future of wrestling like someone who's been old and grizzled and been doing this for about 22 years. So I think that really hammers at home. But no, it was good. It's always, I think, like we finished off last time, Piers, I enjoy, I suppose, getting to just sort of be around and share what little knowledge I have left and be around some of the younger guys. And no, it was good. And then PJ Black and I got to talk about rugby and South African rugby and the state of rugby in Cape Town and some of the places I've been when I was over there. But it was a good little night out. So we'll see. I know what's going to go on next. I actually don't know what's going to go on next. This is some flying by the seat of my pants.
You mentioned chatting with PJ Black about rugby because he's a ex-rugby player as well. I think he was like a flanker, wasn't he?
We didn't get into positions. We were just sort of more talking about schoolboy rugby in South Africa.
Oh yeah, but it's crazy because South Africa, up until I think it was the 90s when they got rid of segregation, really, and it was you know what I mean? When I think it was the 95 World Cup where they really sort of then started, I think, who was the winger? They had one black player in the South African team, and that was the biggest news ever. I didn't realize what it was because I was just 13 or some shit. But
his name's Charles or something, or Charlie.
Yeah. But my dad was saying this is a massive deal. What a big deal this was.
Chester, maybe.
Yes, I think it was something like that. Yeah, Chester something.
Yeah, and that was when Morgan Freeman was the president.
That's correct.
Yes. I'll tell you what, he played a pretty good,
yes.
Pretty good role in that. That was a good movie. But man, as far as the wrestling stuff goes, man, what have you been up to since we last spoke, man? Besides FWA, where are you sort of mainly appearing these days?
My couch. Where else might I been appearing? It's been doing all the stuff with All Star. Sorry, Rob.
That's the best place.
It is. It really is. I've been doing stuff with All Star. Obviously, having the all the gold. There might be one of my relatives might be making cameos at the Yoloco, and but not me, of course. And then that's
this
really
Friday night.
Sorry,
is that this Friday night?
Yeah, I heard one of your cousins might be showing up there too, Rob.
I've got cousins that come in dozens, mate. Don't you worry, they will be there. So yeah, no, for sure.
Not Piers though. Piers got date night.
Yeah, no, I got people coming in. I got my producer flying in on Friday, so I have to catch up with him.
He's got a producer. Wow, that's pretty good. A producer.
Not that one.
Hey, podcast. I can't do all this shit on my own, man. Seriously. But
I have cute little nicknames for my wife too, Piers.
So, with professional wrestling in this day and age, what are you looking to do with it? Are you, going to continue just traveling the Indies, take it further, just enjoy what you're doing, kind of like what I'm pretty much doing?
Pretty much. Just when you say what's my intentions, it's to quote one infamous Rick Sterling. I think my intentions are to just quit. I think was his response to everything. No, look, Rob, I don't have a long-term plan anymore. It's just play around till it's still fun and still viable and doesn't interfere too much with other stuff. I don't know what it's going to look like, and then like I said to Piers before, it's if I get a chance to add some value, then awesome. And that value maybe just some of those side conversations that happen backstage. If there's not that opportunity, or if it stops being fun, or I don't see myself adding value, then I don't have the same level of commitment to others as I maybe once did in the past. Whereas like I flirted with that at different times, thought maybe I'll have a break or I'll walk away, and through sort of that early 2000s period, and even sort of into the early 2010s, it was kind of like, well, no, I have a responsibility to 20 other or 30 other people. I got to keep showing up even when I don't feel like it. Whereas now it's kind of a bit easier just to go, you know what, I only really am going to letting myself down, but not really letting myself down, but it's only really the one person that's affected, I suppose. If I do just decide one day it's no good, or my knees might beat me to it, who knows? They might just decide they've had enough before I do.
Do you feel like how? You went from being like someone who training at PWA and training at this academy for these future stars that have come up. Now, like, how you've taken more of a step back from that? Like, are you still sort of going to some training academies and helping out, doing seminars at some points as well?
A little bit harder, just because of where I'm living, Piers, if I'm being honest.
Sure.
I have the itch to do stuff, and I have put my hand up to, and I asked someone not that long ago if I could use their facility to run a seminar, because there's a few people that have said, they would find some value in it, but just haven't been able to make it work. And then, life gets in the way. I'm sure it's the same for all of you guys, right? So it's all good intentions, but not really. And let's be honest, just because I feel like, just because I have the motivation to go and coach and help out, doesn't mean it's people want me around, and I don't mean that in a negative connotation. Like, they've obviously got their own thing, and there's a perception that comes with having me come in that maybe I have a style or a way of doing things. And I mean, I like to think that that's not the case. I like to think that when we're learning, you want to get as many different sort of inputs and different sort of what do you call it? Influences, I think is the word I was looking for. And then you try and almost create your own sort of style from that, or your own little flavor from that. So I know I've given you a really long answer to a very short question. Yes, I would like to. Don't always get the opportunity to, Piers.
Sure.
And so there's probably, I mean, I'll use your channel here. If there's scope for someone that wants to have me come in and talk nonsense for a couple of hours, I'm more than happy to do it. It's always good to have an audience and not just doing it in your lounge room or to the kids. But yeah, so the itch is there. Whether it's welcome or it's needed. I don't want to say not welcome, but they might have their own sort of thing going on, and it's not for me to interfere in that either.
Sure, but I think like putting yourself out there, like you have for that. I think if someone is running a training school, having you there, whether it's like once a month, even just coming in and doing a Saturday training session with a few of the guys or something there, I think that would be beneficial to them, because you've had not just experience here in Australia, you've gone overseas, you've traveled, you have a very strong understanding of how the business operates, not just the in-ring as well. So I think it's beneficial for a lot of these kids coming up that they have someone like yourself or Robbie as well that they can go in there and break shit down for them that they might not really understand. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, part of it is, and I understand I'm wearing a Robbie Eagle shirt. I know you were talking about Robbie as in Robbie Zucco, but the other part of it is that I'm also noticing. So I'm sort of not censoring my words, but I'm also just being cautious how I word it, because I don't want to be misinterpreted. I had a hand in a lot of these guys that were quite successful. I'm not saying I had this conversation with one of the guys that's overseas at the moment, and he was very grateful. He's like, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. And I was like, actually, mate, you probably would have. I just was fortunate enough to be that person that was around when you did it. I think you're talented enough that you would have been there. And that's not false modesty from my perspective. That's because that person is talented. I would just happen to be the lucky one that got to be a part of that journey. And I hate that cliche, but a part of that journey. But then, and there's lots of people that have gone on to either WWE, or there's a lot of the New Japan guys and other stuff who've, I've had a hand in, or played a very small part in their success. But then I get that, and I was thinking about this the other day, how to word this one, as far as I also get that just because I was the one that helped them get to that point, they still feel value in, well, no, I want to speak to that person because he was successful, not I want to speak to the person that helped them get to that point. And there won't be that much of a differentiation in the way the message is delivered or what their message even is. But it also, I get that a press release might look more impressive if it says, I'll use Robbie Eagles for example. So you put Robbie on a poster, it's more has a few more little dot points that they can put on there than if they put my face on the poster. I'm not as relevant anymore. And I don't say that with an ounce of bitterness. I'm just saying I get how it works, right? So because Robbie's more relevant, you put him on a poster, and then there's the view that you might actually get another 5 extra people that might, rather than if it was just me. But I don't think there'd be a huge differentiation in what is actually being shared or our philosophies, because I would like to think that we're pretty equally matched on as far as our fundamentals or our foundation. And then he's gone off to have his and put his own little flavor on it, as I was talking about putting your own flavor on it, and I 100% get that and support that. And then I would have my own little flavor, and mine probably is more to the conversation, Rob, that you and I have had, and I had with Tyson not that long ago around, I suppose, bringing it back to some of those really sort of key fundamentals around what wrestling was. Not in my day. I'm talking about like well before my day, and what its origins and how we then get back to something that stay true to its core, rather than losing sight of that as we get further and further removed.
It's interesting because I think one of the things that when we had Tyson on last week that he was talking, was
another guy with the same haircut and the same facial hair, but yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. We'd like to keep things, on par here. But, he was saying a lot of times, like, kids will come up to him and say, hey, watch my match. Can I get feedback? Can I get advice? And it's like, it's great. They want that to learn and stuff like that. But when they come back and I don't tell them what they want to hear, it's like, you know what I mean? Like, they just want me to put them over pretty much. You know what I mean? And to a point, it's like, with that information and that feedback that you take back, you talk about, Robbie Eagles. I had him on the podcast the I think it was a month ago. And he was saying he just put the work, like he put the work in. You've said it before as well. He just turned up, listened, took on the feedback, went back. And he even said to me, he's like, he would take like multiple video cameras to shows, record his matches, then go back, rewatch it, and then critique it himself and go, I can do this better, this better, this better. Whereas I don't think there's many people that go and do that now.
It's a reflection of society, and Rob, I'm more than welcome you to jump in if you have other thoughts as well. Yeah, I had an interesting experience at a show not that long ago, just because for a very similar sort of thing that you're talking about. And I don't think that, like you said, I think we live in a generation where everyone just wants it to be their way, and they think that their way is right, and they don't really, like, you just look on. I think there was a prime example. I was sort of looking at something last week and going back to rugby, Piers, because I know we sort of talk about that, but there was a thing with Nick White and the Wallabies the other week, and they had an independent doctor and they got taken off, and there's this whole big buzz thing around head injuries and all that sort of stuff, and Nick White was taken off, had an independent doctor, not the Australian doctor, look at him and then go back on, and then effectively, like, pretty much afterwards, one of the pundits are like, oh, this is ridiculous, like, why did they let him go back on? He clearly had concussion symptoms and all this sort of stuff. And it's like one of the pundits, who was actually an Australian guy, unfortunately, but he lives over in France, kind of went, hang on, we're not doctors, we don't know what happened, we weren't in the locker room, we're not the experts here. But then as soon as it gets on Twitter, people are like, no, you have a different point of view. Like, how dare you say something different to what the main message is, and how dare you contradict that? And those same people that were absolutely smashing Matt Williams would be the same people that will smash another coach for saying something about a referee, about bullying a referee. Like, it's really this, and I think we've had these conversations in more private setting. I probably and it's a common joke with Justin Cross and that sort of stuff around how left-leaning, and even Luke Watts, about how left-leaning my politics are. But then it's people are going to like the absolute extreme with this whole council culture and all this other shit. And it's just like everyone just needs to take a step back and sometimes, and it's the whole. I'm going to go roundabout way to get to my point, but it's almost the participation ribbon culture. You know, the generation of participation ribbons and not being told, no, you came fourth, you don't get a ribbon. You know, you could try harder next time. So it's that sort of thing.
Yeah, I call it a cupcake society. That's just me. I just feel that it's not. The constructive criticism has been taken the wrong way. Like you should be able to give it, and it's the word criticism. So it does hurt, but you learn from it if you actually take it in properly. When we give advice, not trying to hurt you, you know what I mean? We're trying to actually encourage you to get better. If we didn't want you to get better, we wouldn't say shit. I wouldn't give any advice to anybody if I didn't want you to get better. The only reason why I talk as from a wrestling point of view is because I actually like you and I want you to get better, not for the sake of being a dickhead. You know what I mean? So that's the way I look at it. And I feel that a lot of them, it is a bit difficult for them to take in, but also too, they're not used to it. You know what I mean? They're not used to, that type of talk. Where growing up, I had Mark Mercedes telling me what to do, and I'm like, fuck, you know what I mean? And you just kept your mouth shut with that guy, especially back then, because he knew what to do, and he was strong, and he was a big dude. He was intimidating. It's like, fuck, just listen to this guy, just shut up. And he gave me plenty of good advice, but also too, he got on my back with things as well. So I just feel that, look, yeah, I get where society's gone, but also too, how do you get good if you don't have somebody telling you that you need to get better at certain things? Or is it just a way you do it? I don't know exactly. All I do is just ask.
Look, I think in a way, like if you're going and you're going to say, hey, listen, I want to get your advice on something, you know what I mean? Like you're going to, I'm putting it out there that I want to know what you really think. I want your honest opinion on something. And it's like, I wouldn't just sit there and go, oh, okay, yeah, but blah, blah, blah. And we said this, like, we were talking about this last week with Tyson. It's like the yeah, but society. You know what I mean? Get a little bit of feedback. Don't like it. Yeah, but why are you fucking listening? You know what I mean? Like, but that's not like just in a pro wrestling standpoint. That's in life. You know what I mean? Like I had a friend of mine who was like that, who would come to me for life advice and say, what should I do? Blah, 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 blah. Please, man, like give me some advice. I need you to help me. I'd sit and talk with this guy for hours, say, blah, blah, lay everything out for him, what I thought, what would be the best situation. And he'd go, yeah, but and I'm like trying to explain to him, and he's like, yeah, but to the point where I just said, look, what do you want me to tell you? And I'll say it because this is going nowhere. You know what I mean? But it's the same situation with that. It's like, if you want to get better, you have to be prepared to be critiqued in anything that you do.
There's a bit of flags with me as far as there's a saying, or this, I'm trying to think of where it's from now, but it's more about whenever I hear the word but now, like whatever was said before it is almost cancelled out.
Yeah, 100%.
It's just like, so they could say,
you're right.
This, but, and it's just like, okay, well, I'm just going to forget everything you just said then, and I'm only going to focus on that but part, because that's what you really think. You're just adding on the prefix to what you think is appease me.
Yeah, man. True. And I think but that's the thing, like, you know, to take that criticism, if you can take it as an adult and be mature about it as well. And I think maybe that's the thing. It's an immature society, bro, where it's like they're not mature enough to hear some harsh words by someone more senior in an industry. Well, you know, pro wrestling is a tough industry, man. You have to be very thick skinned.
Well, I think, like, sorry to cut you off, Piers, but I also just think about what Robbie's experience with Mark as a peer, my experience with guys like Rick Sterling, or I'm trying to think who else. We were worse than it. Like, I could walk backstage and ask for feedback, and you wouldn't be able to tell me anything like harsher than what Rick was about to tell me off to the side, or with you, Rob, with Mark. You know, like You know, so someone would go, oh yeah, maybe you could tighten this up and you did this. And then I'd go back and sit next to Rick. He goes, what the fuck was that? You know, so I don't know if this is a swear, but that was what it was like. And I was just kind of like, yeah. And so I was conditioned, but then other people who weren't part of that, I suppose, like you say, that was kind of, we almost created a safe space for ourselves. It was like we knew what was in limits and what was off limits and sort of thing. And we were direct and we didn't bullshit each other because we knew that was ultimately what benefited. If we were direct with the guys that we cared about, then, you know, like nothing else, we were almost bulletproof to all the other stuff because it was kind of like, you cannot top anything that old mate's about to say to me. And so it was kind of almost like, and then because we were so harsh at each other, we got better. And then, but anyone outside that goes, I have a conversation with Steve Miller down in Adelaide. And we had a good chat, and the way I was giving him a hard time one time, and that was my way of accepting him and you know, welcome to the fraternity sort of thing. But then someone else heard it and goes, what is his problem with you? Why is he like saying all this shit? He goes, oh, I took that as a joke, but maybe it wasn't, if you're saying it wasn't, like, you know, so it's this whole, and that was what, 10 years ago now, or even longer. And so I feel like, and I'm a part-timer now, I'm not fully invested in it, but it's what's it called? Sorry, I get distracted when these words. I get, hey, Kai, how you doing, bud? I hope you're well. But I get in a bit of a flow and then see some stuff and go, and then start reading and realize that I was mid-sentence. So
yeah, it happens. It happens.
Yeah, good.
What I'm pretty much saying is that we're the weekend warriors now, and we do it because we still we're like heroin addicts. We still take it only just to not get sick, but we don't enjoy it to the point where it's going to be a lifestyle. So yeah, I get it. But you got families, like we understand. There's no problem.
And that's I suppose that's it, right? Like, and that's why I look at, and I'm like super happy for guys like Davis and Kyle and Robbie, and got their opportunity overseas. But you know, I think when I was maybe getting closer to being ready, I won't say that I was ever ready, but closer to being ready. By that stage, I already had a young family and had had commitments, and I would have loved to have taken advantage of some of the opportunities that might have come up, but it wasn't to be. And I get, and I think I said to this to you last time, Piers, I get that my legacy was not to be the guy that went over there, but maybe it was the guy that had a part to play in so many other people having that success overseas. And laying the foundations for what it is now. Again, not taking full credit for any of the positive stuff that these guys are doing, but maybe got to at least lay a platform for those guys to take it. Like they weren't taking it from 0, they were taking it from 3, and now they're at an 8 or whatever. You got to have out of 10 or something. So, you know, and so my part to play was getting it from 0 to 3. I don't know. I spent a lot of time.
I think you started the whole thing up quite well. You assisted and trained some great talent. You know what I mean? And that's something you know I've never done, and something I'd love to do. And I think that's great to have. So these guys, even though they've probably gotten pretty far, such as in bigger companies, I'm sure they're humbly grateful that for everything that you've said, and advice, and everything that you've done for them. So, you know, I think you guys.
I'm having a shit day. I'm just going to call you up for a bit of a pump up. That was good. I appreciate that, mate. So, is there scope? I think from my end, I'm just hearing something that you said. Is there opportunities for you to do stuff like that? If you say that you're keen to train guys, is there that sort of opportunity?
I would love to. I really would. I don't know I don't have the patience right now, so I probably get a little bit frustrated at times because
some would argue I never had the patience for it, Rob. So
yeah. So look, and you know what it is? It's commitment. It's if I go in, it's all in. I'd want my guys to be 100% trained. I can't give you that kind of commitment right now. You know what I mean? So it's a dream to have, but yeah, when you got a full-time family job, running a household, I like what I'm doing right now. If people ask me for stuff, I'm happy to help. I'll go out of my way. If people want to have matches, no problem. But yeah, something maybe in the future. We'll see what happens. But I think that you had. What's that?
I just want to ride on that little bike that you had.
I saw that in the AWA show.
Hey, that wasn't planned.
Not your bike?
Huh?
Was that not your little motorbike scooter thing, or?
No, I found it in the locker room, and it was the referee Dave's. And I said, "Whose is that?" And he goes, "Oh, it's mine." I said, "Can I use that?" You know, he goes, "Yeah." I said, "Cool." So I freaking just straight out, and I had to do a test run first because I nearly crashed it a few times. It's pretty dangerous, that thing. You know, it's
Dave
like
come Friday, or?
To me, it's like riding a Harley. So, but yeah. But do you miss the school? Do you miss training? Do you miss the PWA family that you helped what's the word, train and
Create.
friends create?
Look, there's obviously a big situation that we kind of dance around without actually talking to Rob that attaches different emotions to it. And then also there's a perception again. Well, I think there's a perception around just, you know, how that all played out in my role in it all and all that sort of stuff, which I fully acknowledge. I do miss. It's that. I mean, I've spoken to Piers before. I'm coaching a pretty significant level of rugby union, and I kind of am getting that. So like that's almost my creative and social outlet a lot of the time. But that I don't know if that's just replacing. I always think that the only reason I even got into coaching is because I was getting frustrated with my a lot in the world, and I still wanted to find my way through, so I started coaching as a way to, I suppose, remove myself a little bit from that make believe world and put it a bit in perspective a little bit, you know. But then I've realised that the challenges.
Sorry, keep going. No, I was saying we all know that it can be toxic, so we understand where you're coming from. So it is hard. Yeah,
and then it's also. I think towards the end there, I was pretty I had a vision and like something that I was sort of working towards, and I don't think I ever quite got there, and that's why I fully take my hat off to the guys who've kind of, like I said, they've run with it, and that now I look at it and I go, that's what I was trying to do. I just didn't have maybe I didn't have the skills, or I didn't have the supporting cast, or what it was, or a combination of both to really action out. And I'm like, that's what I was trying to do, and that's why I'm super proud of what they've accomplished. I would love to be able to regularly, just like I said, be involved in that and have that social outlet and have that, you know, a way to sort of express myself creatively. And I still, you know, like that's sort of in the back of my mind. But I also find that because there's large elements of that I can't control. If I was to get bogged down in that's only it's not going to be healthy for me or those around me, you know. So I focus on the stuff that I can control, and I'm getting to do a lot of good stuff with rugby. And now it's about okay, how can I take the stuff that I like or the stuff that I was good at in running the wrestling school and apply it in a different setting? And then that's ultimately like when I go back to do wrestling training stuff. And I know there was a thing. Briefly tried to do it when I went to one of the slam trainings. This is back when it was still in Mikey's garage. It was how do I then take some of the stuff that I've learned in coaching rugby and try and bring it back and incorporate it into the way I suppose would teach now. And I would like to think that I'd do it a very different way based on maybe that my experience or my perceptions about stuff, or even that my values have kind of matured a little bit. And I would like to think that would come out in the way that I now would pass on my knowledge. And I was also reflective, like chatting to one of the guys today about the Yoloka stuff. Like I remember when I started out, like I was still working. I was building the plane and flying it at the same time, right? So I was still working something out and made plenty of mistakes along the way. And I'm grateful there were guys like, I mean, Ugg was one of our first trainees. I think one of our first original three. Ugg and Jesse McKay were two of our first three. And I'm grateful that even Ugg like stuck around and was patient enough to let us make those mistakes and keep improving and those sort of things. So it's not lost on me the great people that I had around, that I got to be around, that I got to play a small part in what they were doing, but also at the same time, you know, like I'm focusing on the good stuff that I can control. I mean, Mighty Tuggeranong Vikings won the grand final this year, so I can but and that's what I was talking about, even about the in wrestling it's make believe, and if I tell you that I'm the toughest and then I book myself to win the belt, then there's no one to disprove that I'm not the toughest. Whereas you go to rugby and I have all these great plans and we have a great practice all week, and then the other team show up and they've got all of a sudden they've got 3 of their brumbies back, and it's like, right, okay, well this has just ruined our plans. It sorts a bit of the men from the mice out, or the men from the boys out, and whatever shitty analogy you want to use. But and that's I think I like about real sport is sometimes there's some ego checks in there that are not built in; they just happen because of circumstances and that you can't control. So
how do you find, like, when you're training rugby, right, do they know about your wrestling background? Like, do they sort of like...
I try so hard to hide it, hey.
Really?
And then there is because it's just not I don't have any of like my socials up anymore, and I just it's just a very different time in my life. And then also I have to have the conversation of why I was involved in this and all this good stuff I was doing, but then where am I at? And I just keep it. I usually keep it under wraps, and then there's always one that finds out. So we had one of the boys, particularly from like when I had like the old Sydney Southwest days, like the rep high school team. They all kind of knew because some of the other kids at my school knew, and they would tell someone. And then got to Canberra and kept it pretty much under wraps. And then it was halfway through this season, someone sent me a photo, and it was a one of the shitty photos that's floating around online. I was just like, shit, okay, here we go. And one of the boys found out from one of his mates in Sydney that had known me from back in the day. And I was just like, all right, yep, that's me in a different time. And, I had it was like, it would have been about circa 2013 or 14 when I had the massive beard and, just got back from the States. And it was just...
Face paint as well? Is that what you had?
This group hasn't seen the face paint photo, but there's been other groups that have used that one, brought that one up. But this group was not that one. It was another really shitty photo that was taken and poorly edited and poorly lit, and it's just not flattering at all. And I'm just like, yeah, great.
But that's the technology world that we live in, bro. That's the technology world that we live in now. Is like back when we were kids in school, like unless we like saw a teacher out on the weekend or after school hours doing some sus shit, like you wouldn't even, or a coach or whatever, you wouldn't even know. You know what I mean? Like we didn't have that technology back in the day.
Yeah. And then there used to be like a 2013, like a cool little highlight video on the PWA YouTube channel. And that's that people used to float around, and that's no longer in existence. So now it's all the cool shit's gone that they can find. It's all just the really shitty, unflattering photos.
We got Giant Coyote wanting to ask a question. What do you guys feel is missing in training schools today? What we came up with? What I don't know what he's trying to say here. What do you guys feel?
What's missing now that we had in our day? And I think it's
I'll let you guys answer that one. Yeah.
I don't know, Rob, do you want to go? Because
well, I guess you could say it's we used a lot more psychology. Not saying that they don't use it today. I'm just saying it's more of a athletic spectacle now. Which is all good and well. So I think it was just the training. We focus more on psychology, how to use stuff, when to use it at certain times, and now it just changed. It just more like shock value. It became more. Are we wrestling here, or are we watching a athletic contest? So it just varied. So I think mainly just everyone says all back to the basics and stuff, but there's a lot of people that really don't understand the basics in general. So I don't see a lot of basics being used in a match these days. But then again, you've got such other cool stuff to use. Why use them? So I understand where they come from in this day and age. But what's missing, to me, I think it's just breaking down all those finer details. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Was there much difference, Rob, in your experience? And I'm going to kind of half answer what my perception of it is with Mark and his style of teaching here, and I'm not sure who else was doing the training for you at IWA, but then your experience with OVW and overseas as well, like in the places that you choose to train, like was there much difference or?
I think we're pretty lucky. See, Mark was the type of wrestler that you do a few, you do a couple of spots, and the rest you wing. And when I did go to HWA, they taught us how to actually call the match a lot better on the fly. They structured it a lot better. It was Mark had a good lineage, so he came from obviously the Malenko school. You know what I mean? So when I went from Mark, I went from Bobby Blaze, who was a phenomenal wrestler, and then of course I went to HWA, and they had all these guns, these guys that were just they weren't famous yet, but they were just so talented. So yeah, look, that was the wrestling was pretty much, Mark set a pretty good standard. You know what I mean? Where a lot of other companies at the time, they were spotting it a lot more, which is good. But I just felt that that's the direction where wrestling was supposed to go. But we all know now that, you know, in this day and age, you need to have a mixture of both. You know what I mean? You know, good wrestling, you know, good great athleticism, you know, to build them up, and because there's high expectations now. So yeah, look, I think the difference is I was lucky. I went to a school that they wrestled a lot more. It was more mat wrestling orientated. So I was lucky in that sense, but I missed out on all that cool high flying stuff that you guys did. You know what I mean? And I think that's important too. I think you need a mixture of both.
Mate, and I still give you credit for your arm drag, so I know I've put you over for that before. But one of the things that I think probably I picked up on Piers that Rob said a whole bunch there was from the difference from now, and I cringe when I hear it. And from what Rob was saying, he was saying, I went to this wrestling school and we learned to wrestle, and there was wrestlers there. And now I hear like people, they're who did you work, not who did you wrestle, and it's the cool insider term, but it's almost not treated like it's a wrestling contest. It's a work of art, if you want to almost, and so it becomes this like it's this athletic display. And I think I was having a conversation with someone there. Oh, it was with Davis actually the other day, and he goes, "Oh, we'll do this and this," and I'm like, "Yeah, but I don't flip." So I never. I was prepared to jump off dumb shit, but I never flipped, and I think that's where Robbie always had the edge on me. But that's probably one of the things. It's just even in our language, some of the things that change. It's just those slight little perception tweaks around what we do. And I used for ages I try to get people not to call them shows, but to call them events. You know, like because that was that was one of my big things in the later days when I was involved with PWA. Is let's not call them shows. We're not working. We're wrestling. It's a wrestling event. It's a you treat it with that sort of reverence, and I suppose then. It's slightly just if you're using that language, it changes a little bit of your mindset about how you approach it then as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, right.
I think like it's mindset, but like it's interesting to see because one thing, like I was at a AWE show this past Friday, and I was watching a few of the guys training, and one of the wrestlers was like hitting the ropes. And Sammy goes, "Oh, sec, stop. I want to see you hit the ropes." And it was like the footwork. And he was explaining how the person needed to step forward. But how they explained was like, "Oh, this is how I was trained to hit the ropes." And he's like, "Well, this is the right way to do it." And I'm like, wow, like this, it's not that person's fault. It's like if that's the way they were trained and conditioned to do something, now for them just to switch that off and do something completely different, that could be hard.
But I also cringe at that, Piers, and this goes to the broader conversation that we're talking about. We have one way, like I have one way of doing things. Rob has one way of doing things. Sammy or whoever else has one way. There's no right way of doing things. So whilst we have might have a personal preference towards the wrestling and those foundations, and then adding on whatever little bits of clay here and there to make it its own flavor.
Yeah.
there's no guarantee that that's the right way to do things. Like that's just like I think that's how it should be done. Rob will have his. We might even slightly differ, and we have very similar. I feel like we have perceptions, but then there might be a little bit of difference here and there. And you know what, that's fine too. And then Sammy will have his way, and that's fine. And then Robbie will have his way. And like I'm talking about Robbie Eagles, and I'm like, yep, sweet, you do it that way. That's your prerogative, and that's probably one of the good things. And I talked about the negative side of, no one's to keep you in check, and there's a certain way to do things, and this is I've learned this very much with rugby too. Like I could play this way, and I could play real direct and around the corner, or I could play real expansive almost. And there's no way to say, there's nothing to say that this way is better than that way. It's just different, and so
it's good, better, and best. So it's good, better, and
what's
best.
Good, better, and best for you is different to what's good, better, and best for me too, Rob. Though, like so I'm quite prepared to say that I don't know the answer to what is the best way to do things, or the best way to train, or the best way to,
it's subjective. Everyone's going to have a different way of doing it that worked well for them, and that's the way that they're going to train their trainees, right?
So I would never jump the ring going, this is the right way to do it.
Exactly. You can tell the difference when they've been trained to do something or when they've got no clue. Like you can actually see it, you know what I mean? Like I learned something the other day and I didn't really pay attention to this, but way I was taught to run the ropes, obviously hand over, this part, lean in, whatnot. And I noticed other people were turning their backs and then leaning like this when they're hitting the ropes. They're almost like touching the ropes. And somebody asked me, what's the right way to do? And I said, well, I was taught this way. And I said, well, that's probably, because he was asked, okay, maybe he should change the way he's doing it. But then I actually went back and I said to him, hang on a sec. I just saw a whole bunch of people doing it. Okay, people are being taught this way. You know what I mean? People are being taught to run the ropes a certain way, a different way, the way I've been taught. So really, I guess you can say, it's just different. You can't say it's wrong, it's just different. It's like when people shoot people off with the ropes, people like lunge in, some people bend one, just pull, some people just swing back, you know what I mean? It's just different, you know what I mean? As long as you kind of get the same result, I don't always know the answer to that either. I just think it's just different.
As long as it doesn't mean it doesn't matter, right?
As long as it doesn't look shit, you know what I mean? And it's all part of it. I mean, like, am I going to say Bret Hart, the way he shot people off was like this? You know what I mean? Am I going to say he can't wrestle? You know what I mean? He can't. Benoit, when he shot people off, he just, lunged down and just shot it. You just,
I mean,
which one's right? You know what I mean?
Well, we can't say the second one's name, so,
Exactly. Well, Ric Flair. You got all these experts telling people, okay, if you get somebody in a headlock, don't shoot him back to the ropes. Just shoot him then and there in the center of the ring. But Ric Flair used to always grab somebody and go back. You know what I mean? Or people go like this and grab the rope when they go to lean and then run off. Where Triple H will hold like this, then go. You know what I mean? So it just depends. It just depends. There's just different ways.
DJ.
Good to say.
Rob, tell DJ he's wrong. Just
what is the safest way? Don't fall out.
Don't fall out of the ring. Have you guys ever seen that happen on the show? Like someone's gone to hit the ropes and they've like gone fucking straight between them. And
I can do one better. I was on a show down in Melbourne and I was wrestling Hayden Zenith. But the pretty much the top rope like snapped off. I'm sure something similar might have happened to you, Robbie. And so you're wrestling the whole match with only like the bottom two ropes.
Oh shit! Seriously, that'd be fucking crazy to see.
Yeah,
all
14 in the 10 were shocked.
I've seen so many people get caught under, so they go to lean into the ropes and they just slide under and they come back and you know what I mean. Saw Crazy Dog do it one time, just went bang and then straight back out, and I'm there going, shit, how did he do that? Like it's just like a rocking chair, just went straight out. So it's you slip under, bang. I don't know. It's happened. I've gotten caught a few times underneath. You know what I mean? I've slipped a couple. So it happens. It happens.
Shit happens in wrestling sometimes.
It's shit. It's the worst feeling.
I once saw a guy. once saw a guy do a botch, Ryan, at a show. He went through the steel cage.
I don't know what a botch is. Sorry, what was that, Piers? It's
a mistake. But yeah, this guy went through the steel cage. You know who?
Yeah. Well, you know, that's actually another thing I want to touch on. I notice a lot of young wrestlers, especially in this day and age, if you're having a really good match, you're watching a really good match, and things are going super smooth, one little botch happens, but then the rest of the match is still fantastic. Mentally, in the younger wrestler's mind, they go, oh, fuck. That's their focus. They didn't have a great match because of that. Is that something that you think as well? Because from my perception, they're not actually concentrating on the fact, well, you just had a match that went, 99, 98%, great for you, and you just messed up one little thing. Even though you try not to, you want perfection. I don't know. I feel that the focus is more on that rather than the actual whole match on how it went, because everybody botches, even yourself. But what's your thoughts on that type of stuff?
Never in my life have I, Rob.
No. Remember the match we had?
Wrestling.
Sorry?
Do you remember the match we had?
Fantastic. Until I had to try and give a top rope suplex, and then the ropes were wobbly, and I just went, you know what, we're going from here, Rob.
That was just my legs. On the ropes, on my legs, not wobbly.
My legs, not yours. I was going to say I think it's also what people then use to measure what is good, a good match, and this is one of my bugbears. I'd say, like you can see people, and I like to sort of sit there and listen, and some of the stuff I find quite humorous as guys come backstage and they're like, oh, that was awesome, we did this and we did this and we did this, and I sat there and went, there's just a curtain separating me and the main auditorium, and I couldn't hear it. Like, the crowd didn't say boo. Why was it a good match then? And then and this is probably part of it is making up for my own physical limitations at this stage of my career, but I go out there and my goal is to then get an emotional connection, and I like to think that I do it without all the fancy stuff on top, and that's always been my kind of approach, but I do feel an obligation that on a main event that you've got to find a way to still step it up and make it a bit more memorable from that aspect as well. But it's one of my favorite matches, if you talk about one of my favorite matches, and also I like to talk about is, and I don't know if I've sort of spoke to you about the Piers, is when Gambino and I did the IWA show in Albury, and it was like we went for it was a good 20, 25 minutes and didn't do a thing, like didn't touch each other. And we had people throwing beer cans at us and going nuts. And I had a little bit of a running gag going with snares. It was taking photos on the outside. And then I think we locked in and did about 2 or 3 minutes of an actual match, went to a finish. And then there was the schmozzle, like the typical RWA booking. And then out came Vinky, and out came a bunch of other guys. And then set up a big sort of 6-man tag or an 8-man tag or whatever it was. But that, like, for me, that is, if I can get that, I like to think the Hulk Hogan, it's Bash at the Beach sort of reaction without actually having to do something. I've done what I feel the purpose of wrestling is to elicit that emotional response. And I think that, and again, there are others that maybe don't quite grasp that, but then are able to get a response by doing a really cool flip. And so they go, well, that's what wrestling is like. If I do this, then I get that reaction, as opposed to taking the time to go, well, what else can I do to make sure that I'm connecting with the audience? I had this, I feel like I'm just replaying all the bunch of different conversations that I had, but talking to someone around the fact that, the baby face always had to be the cool guy, always had to be tough, always had to be on top, and then was never vulnerable. So it's like, well, why would I give a shit? Why would I want to, and I get that, you watch movies and it becomes a bit formulaic when you see the good guy always getting beat down before he makes the inevitable comeback, but that's why you get invested in that inevitable comeback. And people can pay lip service and say they understand how to put stuff together, and I know that I do this, and you paint by numbers and all that sort of stuff, but I don't think they fully grasp that, like that whole, sometimes you've got to do less to do more. And, it's about, how do I manipulate people's emotions, and how do I manipulate that reaction? And you don't have to do it all with all the fancy shit.
And that's the thing, you hit the nail on the coffin there. So it's basically, emotional connection, connecting with the crowd. And that's some of the questions I actually get asked when they ask me, how did I go? And a lot of the things I do say, because a lot of the guys are so athletic. And I must admit, I can never do what a lot of the guys do athletically. They do fantastic stuff. But then they wonder why they're not getting all the reactions that they want at certain times, because, as you said, there's not enough emotional connection. They're not connecting with the crowd. They're not actually involving the crowd. And that's the big part about, wrestling. People look at Robbie Eagles, and I say this to everyone, he's an incredible athlete. People are just trying to follow and do what he does at times when it comes to the actual wrestling side. But when you think about it, look what he does. He's always interacting with the crowd. He's always trying to get their action before he does the next move. You know what I mean? So he's actually connecting with the crowd, hence the reason why his shit works quite well. So
and he gets the shit out of him well. He gets the stuff, he gets beaten up well to the point where people feel sorry for him, and then they want to see him succeed. So when he actually does hit the flip, it means something. It's not he's just done a flip and then he gets that. Oh, that was cool. It's
Correct.
Very much. I get that part of it's missing at times, and I get that it just sounds like three grumpy old men yelling at clouds right now about, in my day it was better because we did this, and there was plenty of people that we've shared locker rooms. I'm sure, Rob, you're the same. That there's plenty of people I've shared locker rooms along the way that just don't get what I feel is it, and they might accidentally stumble onto it, and then they never sustain it because it's just like they kind of don't quite grasp what they're trying to do or how to really. I think there's a very select few that have got that fuck me the bit of fluff floating around, and I thought I brushed it away, and then somehow I ended up choking on it. But I definitely feel it like. It doesn't matter what era we're in. There's only a select few that really get it, and they tend to stand out.
Yeah.
I think as well, like if you have a mindset going into it as well of like being able to take criticism, I think that's when you start to really get it as well, because it's like you start to understand the psychology aspect of the business, not just go in, move, flip. I like watching the indie style of wrestling. I won't lie, I enjoy it because I think it's pretty cool. But as far as seeing it as a pro wrestling storytelling match, I like it from a different aspect. Like if they can make things mean more, like you said about Robbie, when he gets up to starts clapping his hands, connecting with that audience to make that connection. Because it's like when you can get non-wrestling fans emotionally connected in wrestling, and it can happen. Like people who who've never watched wrestling can sit down, and there might be a certain moment or a certain match or a certain thing that they connect with that hits home to them on a personal level, that they go, fuck, okay, no worries. You've got someone who's not a wrestling fan emotionally invested because you made them feel something that they've felt before. Either of
this
you
is
can
you.
speak.
I'm waiting for the question. I just thought that was a really good, insightful statement. I'm like, okay, sweet. Is there got a question coming here? Interview a guy or what?
That is true. That is true. But also, too, you have to take in consideration that I can't just turn around and say what I used to do is the way to go. And I get a lot of people go, oh, I want to work with you. I want to work on the fly. Well, you know what? I want to work with you because I actually want to go through a few other stuff as well, such as, doing certain moves that you guys do, so I think it's best to balance everything, especially in this day and age. Otherwise, someone like The Undertaker wouldn't have made it if he just stuck to the old school, or Shawn Michaels. They embraced what the new guys have, brought it in, incorporated, some old school stuff as well. So I just think it's important to have both. And
but that's like Terry.
The wider, sorry to Piers, but I think one of the things you touched on there, Rob, is from the construction of a whole show and sort of talking to people about like even just booking and stuff now, or just the way that you can you your part that you play in the wider picture. If everyone was Shawn Michaels, Shawn Michaels wouldn't have meant as much. If everyone was the Undertaker, then the Undertaker wouldn't have meant as much. So there is that need for variety, and we can't have that. So whilst this is the other part that I see where I fit into the puzzle and being conscious of, I can't do the stuff that Robbie does. Robbie, it's confusing using Robbie, but you know what I mean. Like I don't aspire to be like that, because I know that my little lane is to do this stuff, whatever that is, and it might be, to do some of the brawling, do some of that stuff. It's not to say that, and I also I love that when people talk about what's called, like, oh, I'm the best technical wrestler. It's like, yeah, but just because you can do it doesn't mean that, or just because I can do it doesn't mean I don't have to do it. I found my niche on the shows to be the the scrappy guy and everything else, and it doesn't make sense for me to go out there and wrestle, but then also it leaves another channel or another for then Robbie Zucco to go out there and do a bit of his character shtick and wrestle, and then it leaves the chance for the Velocities to come on and do some of their awesome stuff. And I don't need to stomp on what they do. They're not going to come out and they won't do something. They're not going to do the same stuff that Robbie Zucco does. They're not going to do the same stuff and he's not going to do the stuff that I do. And it's finding that, so that when that person that you talk about, Piers, that isn't a regular fan, they might like something. They might like, I really liked it when the guy with the beard punched that guy in the face, because I couldn't tell if that was real or not. And then the guy sitting next to him goes, yeah, but did you see when that small guy did that flip? That was pretty cool. And oh yeah, did you see when the guy that came out on the little fake motorbike told me to get stuffed? Like that was, I thought that, and that's part of what this whole thing is. We provide different things for different people to go away and go, and that's that was what resonated with me.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like I said, that emotional connection that gets with the audience. And I think it's, if you can make someone feel something that they've felt before, like a certain type of feeling, that's the way that people get involved in it, I believe. They've gone through a similar experience in their life or something like those lines. And that's when you can tap into it. But like, as far as, with PWA,
I saw Rick Sterling called someone fat one day, told him to put the sausage roll down on a show in Queensland, and they felt something. They went outside and cried, and I don't think they'll ever go back to the wrestling. So we've got to be careful about what we make them feel and that sort of stuff. So we want to make it real to a point.
Well, but that's the thing. As a heel, like, is he out of line to say something like that to the audience? Like, I suppose in 2022 he is, right? That's cancel culture.
This would have been 2000. Oh shit, I don't know now. 2010, 2009 maybe.
Yeah,
and
right.
It was in Queensland. And the main event was like a over the top gimmick match, and just sort of like you're walking out general heel heat, and it's just the and someone yelled something. It's like, why don't you put down the sausage roll, you fatty, and then say it? And the person obviously struck a nerve. So I mean, I just laugh.
Exactly. If you're a real heel in this day and age, you wouldn't give a shit about what anybody says. You know what I mean? You just do it. Obviously, there'll be times when you overstep your mark and then you pull it back a little bit. But, it defeats the purpose of a heel. You're not supposed to be lying.
I saw this one as well. Did you see the stuff with this whole Me Too thing that came out a little while ago? And there were people that had genuine situations that they needed to speak to, and then there was people coming out and saying that Maddie Wahlberg was rude to them at a show and was a heel, and I think everyone kind of went, that's just cheapened everyone else's like experience or negative experience, because now you're complaining about someone being mean to you because they were playing a character at a show, and you asked for a photo and they said, I think it was something ridiculous like, yeah, he told me I had to pay $20 or something, like, what a prick, and it's like, we should cancel him. It's like, please, like, really? Like, he was like, I think anyone that like with half a brain went, he was being a heel and was doing a pretty good job because he's obviously got you stirred up. Don't hijack something that's supposed to be meant for the all intents and purposes.
The real reason, I get it. Yeah, exactly.
But I think that person isn't of sound mind, though. You know what I mean? Like, because
I'm not even making that assumption, Piers, because I don't know the person. I don't know anything about him.
I don't know either. I don't know.
I think I know who the person is. Like,
you know who it is.
Yeah. You've been like stalking him and.
No. This person still turns up to shows, and someone said, "Hey, that's blah 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 blah."
Are we talking
okay.
about the same thing? Is this the one where Maddie Wahlberg got accused of being a bully? Is that
Something
the
like
one?
that.
No, different. This was it's similar. Yeah, I think.
I
Okay,
don't,
because
I don't know the full thing.
I'll tell you, I remember having a conversation with him about that, and he goes, and we're at an IWA show, and he just goes, Rob, I've been called like a freaking beat. They're going, why are you worried? And he goes, because I'm a fucking school teacher. I don't do that. You know what I mean? Why would I be a bully? He goes, I'm just telling the truth about, what's happening in the situation. I said, just don't worry about it. You know what I mean? You're going to come up against this type of stuff all the time. So if you make it far, or if you pursue this, you're going to put up with this type of shit. You know what I mean? He didn't do
Not a school
anything
teacher
wrong.
anymore.
I know. Huh? Well, exactly. But at the time he was, and I said I wouldn't worry too much about it. He didn't do anything wrong. I don't think he did anything wrong. Just because you have an opinion on something, it's not. No,
Look, I think with him as well, though, he's a loud, confident guy, and people take loud, confident people as obnoxious and arrogant sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, full of
he plays a part of a loud, confident guy. Who's to say that actually is Maddie in I'm not saying
what he
it isn't, but I'm
portrays.
also- yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the reason why he's gotten where he's gotten, because he naturally has that charisma. So people can take it the wrong way. That's fair enough. I've never had a problem with that guy at all. He's always been really good, considerate. So whatever happened, whatever he said, or I don't even know what happened. I just think it wasn't that big. You know what
I was just talking more in general about creating that emotion, like this day and age of creating that emotional reaction is like it's a minefield.
But it's funny because it's like I heard like a story of and I'm not sure if I've told either of you guys this before, but I interviewed Maven Bentley, who used to be the promoter for CZW.
And Maven
yeah. So I asked him what the most outlandish thing a wrestler wanted to do on a show, and he said easily MJF was on the Indies. He was he was the heavyweight champion for CZW, or he was a champion or some shit like that. And he came up to him before the show and he said, hey, I got this idea. I want to come out to the ring and do a promo. He goes, okay, cool. What do you want to do? He goes, I want to come out and shit on the American flag. And Maven's like, you want to come out and like what, badmouth the American flag? He goes, no, I want to come out to the middle of the ring, spread the flag out, take my pants down, and shit in the middle of the ring on the flag. And Maven was like, nope.
He was working.
And he was like, thinking the heat we could get.
No, he was ribbing someone. He must have been.
You reckon?
Yeah. He would have done that. Have you seen that? Have you seen that done in any ring? No. Someone will do it now after this conversation, but I think he was just ribbing. I would have taken that as a rib. Huh?
But I think, man, like you want to talk about cancel culture, bro. Like, imagine if he'd done that, he would be nowhere near a promotion right now if he did some shit like that. Anyone? The awkward fucking silence.
Mueller. He doesn't want to say. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how people operate these days.
There was some pretty mental stuff in CZW at a certain point, so I wouldn't even put it past them. So even someone to actually suggest that.
Yeah, well, it's pretty
definitely creative. It's never been done before, so
probably a reason it's never been done before.
What does Jim Ross say? He goes, "You don't know unless you try." He goes, "How do you know it's a bad idea?"
I heard a story of a guy in Canada was doing an I Quit match, and he wanted to have the guy pull a gun on him, and then and the guy was, because he was a big baby face, the heel was going to pull a gun on him. He's like, "No, I still don't quit." And then the guy was going to go like, "Mate, you're crazy. I quit. I'm not keeping going with this one. Like, if you wouldn't quit to a gun." I'm like, I've heard that one before.
That's
it wasn't a rib, Rob. I've heard it from a few different people. It was people like, this guy actually exists in the world and thinks that this is a good idea.
Oh,
yeah. Process that one for a bit, Piers.
That's so bad. That's But you know what? Like, it's one thing for like weapons and stuff to be incorporated in wrestling, but when you come out with a firearm, I just think that just hits on a personal level.
I know the guy's name, and I'm not gonna throw it out there. I'll tell you when we're not online, Piers. But yeah, it's
That's
that was
a bit extreme. That's actually was there at least a storyline? Was there at least a storyline with that, or was it like happening?
I'm surprised the guy didn't pitch. He's like, what you could do is go to the crowd, get my kid, put the gun to the kid's head, and just be like, "You better quit," and I won't quit. It's like,
it's not the American flag.
Yeah, well, exactly, man, exactly. That's some wild shit, though, bro. Like, yeah. I think that's another for an episode on another day. I think we should do is like just talk about like just ridiculous booking things that you've seen executed on shows. Because I think that. Well, quickly, what's the most ridiculous thing you guys have seen booked on a show that you've been on?
Jeez, that's a good one. Just stuff like I know, like the first time I ever met Davis. Was up in Queensland. And it was like a 14 match card, and like it was just it was ridiculous. I think I wrestled Mason at match number 11 or 12, and by this stage, it's like I wanted to go home, let alone the crowd.
Yeah, right.
And I think the main event was a 3-way match, and one of the guys that ended up scratching his eye with putting his contact in through the day, so that kind of went out the window.
How did it draw?
Look, I've tried to put that time behind me, Piers, and that was also the day that Phil Picasso tried to steal my boots because I had a bird on the back of them, and he still brings it up. But I think it was decent. Like this is like 2005, 2006, maybe.
Yeah.
So
the dark days of wrestling, the dark days.
Yeah. So seeing some ridiculous stuff like that. What about you, Rob? You would have seen some stuff.
God, I've seen plenty, but off the top of the car, I can't think of. There's just so much ridiculous shit that I've seen. So what tops it? God, I don't know. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. You know, nothing.
I think of dumb stuff as well.
Maybe I'm going brain dead for the amount of bumps that I've taken, so I can't actually think anymore. So
it wasn't me. This is the interview. I didn't bring up CTE this time, Piers. It was Rob.
Yeah, exactly. But like, I feel like with silly booking and silly rest, like you can have some of the best performers in the world on a card, but if the booking is terrible, or I mean, it just makes the whole experience bad. Like you could, as I said, best wrestlers in the world on the show, but if you don't give them the correct canvas, how can they pull it off?
There was one CPW, and I love the guy. Like all the guys are good dudes, but they used to have a gimmick before Cross and I started booking it, and it was like every match on the card had like a stipulation, or it was a hardcore match or whatever, and you had guys like Bish and Will like take the piss out of it, and their whole match was all about they had a step ladder and a matchbox that had one thumbtack in it, and so they were doing all this stuff. Like it was just over the top ridiculous about the fact that it was kind of everything had something attached to it, and it's like a night of hardcore or something I think it was called, and it was just overkill. I think that's
TNA did that shit years ago. Remember, like with like the cage match show.
Where everyone was in a cage match?
Every match was a cage match.
Oh, I think I vaguely remember it.
That's so like, you know what I mean? Like at that point, you'd start repeating shit in matches because it's like, I think what they could have done is just elevate each different cage, like put up different cages. But then again, how long is that going to take for a show?
I'll do like a triple decker cage like they had in the old WCW days.
Oh, you know what? That is one thing I'm surprised that WWE never fucking picked up.
Oh, that's probably a reason behind it.
Yeah, it was a cool concept.
They would have thought about it. I'm sure they would have thought about it. With all the riders and people they had, they would have sat down and gone, should we do this? And they're like, probably 5 of them, 10 of them, whatever. They said, yeah, it might not work. You know what I mean? It didn't work before, so it might work.
But you know what? It's kind of like Hell in a Cell on steroids, really.
Oh fuck! That elimination chamber, that looks fucking brutal. You know what I mean? When they design that type of shit.
Yeah, no, 100%, man.
I saw,
You know what? Sorry, go on.
I was going to talk about the one where I saw Rob Van Dam and Booker T. They were all in it, and man, I just saw Van Dam jumping off everything. I think Jericho might have been in it as well, and it just looked like everything they did just hurt. You know what I mean?
Wasn't that one of the first ones?
I think
so. Yeah, that was around in Bischoff.
I'm sure someone got like pretty hurt in that too. I'm straining to remember now, but was it in that?
He fucked his throat up.
That's right. Didn't Van Dam kick him in the throat or something?
He did the frog splash, and his knee landed straight there in his throat.
There you go. So this is why we keep you around, Piers, to tell us all the inside goss.
Well, you know, I'm glad I could be of assistance and service. But you know what, guys? It is that time of the show. It is time for us to ride off into the sunset. Bro, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. It's great to have a chat to you and, Robbie tonight. Thank you, guys. Guys, make sure you go and check out our sponsor. I can't even talk today, seriously. Go and check out our sponsor, sleeves.com. Sorry?
The elephant undies?
Work under this.
Elephant undies, yeah. Go check out sleeves.com.
I think they need to send over some samples to some of their frequent guests. You know, if you come on more than once, then you get a pair of elephant undies. Is that how it goes, Rob? Should we be putting ourselves?
I'm a co-host. So I haven't even got mine yet. And I'm a co-host. So you know, I'm still waiting.
I'll reach out to him, bro. I'll reach out.
Appreciate it, mate.
But guys, make sure you check out Sleeves. Ryan, where can everyone find you on social media and go give you a follow and a like? And
no, you can't, mate. All my stuff's gone.
Ryan Eagle says, "Fuck off."
I'm a heel in real life, you know.
Yeah.
Actually, you can find me on Piers Austin, shooting the shit. Plug all your stuff, and then people can reach out to you, Piers, and so we'll get some traffic through your pages. And then you can just send me a message afterwards and let me know if there was any pertinent questions. Hey,
no dramas at all. Make sure you go and do that, guys. But until next time, we'll see you again very, very soon. I got my interview with Kasai dropping this Thursday, guys. So make sure you tune in for that. 7 p.m. on Thursday, that will drop. And I'm also going to be dropping another episode, a very special episode on Saturday, a third episode for the week, which is going to be for former adult film actress and former ECW original Jasmine St. Clair. So make sure you guys go and look out for those episodes. We'll be dropping later this week.
Do you need two co-hosts at all, Piers, or?
The interview's already done. Hey, guys, until next time, we'll see you again very soon.
See about it.
Thank you.
Thank you, bastard.
All the best. Peace.